One, you don't have to like overly analyze every single piece of entertainment and everything you're consuming. But two, this stuff shapes us more than we realize. The stories that we consume and the movies we consume, they do shape a culture, and they do shape your own personal life. They're going to shape your views on purpose, on marriage, on pick a topic. Yeah, you don't have to like dissect every single movie, but you should think about like, okay, what am I watching? What is it doing to me? And what is it saying to me?
You're listening to the Access Conversations podcast. I'm Evan Barber, joined by Irene Tucker to interview Rob Stennett today. Rob is a graduate of UCLA Film School, filmmaker, novelist, and content creator. His work has been recognized with ADDYs for writing and directing. He won the Denver Film Race for Best Writing and a Silver Telly at the Telly Awards for a feature documentary he wrote and directed. He's created story and video content for brands, churches, and nonprofits all over the world, including National Geographic, Compassion International, One Chapel, New Life Church, Dish Network, MLB, Formula One, and the Discovery Channel.
Whoa.
And is also the owner and lead creative of Storyize and the co-host of the podcast Meaning of the Movie.
It's one of my favorite podcasts ever.
Yes, awesome. Rob, thanks so much for joining the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for that introduction. That was great. For me, I love telling stories, and so any chance I get, if someone's like, oh, can you tell a story about this? I'm like, I'm in. What are we doing? And so that's why I've done so many different various things.
I love that.
So off of that, Mike Cosper recently asked me a question, which was, what is a story? And I was like, well, it's a thing where you've got setting, character, plot, conflict, resolution, and it's about people's experiences through time. And he said, that's not really what a story is. But I want to ask you, Rob, how would you define what a story even is?
If I could distill a story down, I would say a story is about a character that wants something and learns a lesson. And like really if I'm looking at a draft of a script or my own script and the character doesn't want something, and this was very interesting for me early on where I'm like, oh, if a character doesn't want something, we don't have a story. That's really what like Luke wants to go to the stars, Frodo wants to destroy the ring, like Marty wants to get back to the future, like pick whatever story you want. And there's something in that of like a character wants something. And one of two things happen. If it's a comedy, a character will like learn a lesson, or if it's a tragedy, a character won't learn a lesson, but will learn a lesson by their downfall. And so that's kind of like at its core what a story is. And actually, I mean, I'm not even trying to plug my own podcast, but the whole reason I started a podcast is because I love movie podcasts. I listen to them all the time. And most of them are like, hey, this is the actor, this is the director, this is the idea. But very few of them are about what is the theme and the lesson in this movie. And I'd kind of challenge, I mean, we've done like Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park and very much popcorn movies. But even in those movies, there are big themes and big ideas. And I think any movie that really resonates has sort of some theme and idea. It's not just entertainment.
So on your podcast, Meaning of the Movie, when you're trying to figure out what a movie means, what are you looking for? What questions are you asking?
Well, we have a few. One of them is like, what's the character that kind of went on a journey, who learned a lesson? And then really, I'm just trying to look at like, what is the movie trying to say? And I'm looking at that. A lot of times the ending, there's no more powerful way to know what a movie's trying to say than like the way it ends and that sort of thing. But then, the characters, I think the key, the Rosetta Stone to unlocking a movie is which character do we empathize with? Okay. Which character do we put ourselves in the shoes and like, oh, I would like The Godfather's this great sort of example where it's like, okay, I empathize with Michael Corleone, who wants to be like, he respects his dad, but doesn't want to get sucked into the family. He's like, I'm not like my dad. I'm not going to be like my dad. And the reason The Godfather's a tragedy is because the thing that Michael promises Kay that he won't become like, spoiler if you've never seen The Godfather, but promises Kay he won't become like, he turns into in the end.
Right.
And so really those are the things that we're looking at is like, who's that main character? Who do you empathize with? and what do you learn about those decisions?
Do you think that our own life stories inform what we get from a movie or an experience? Because I can watch something and totally geek out about it, and I come and I tell my, colleagues, and then they go see it and they're like, it was fine. You know what I mean? And I'm like, but this person did this and it blew my mind. And it's so interesting that how some stories can like speak to some people and not others. And so for me, I like to watch movies and go like, is this one speaking to you, or is it just me? And so do you think that stories are really framed around our personal experience and our lens of like life experience?
For sure. Like, I just saw Toy Story 5, and like as a parent, that movie resonates with me deeply. And I'm sure it resonates with my kids in a different way. But like as a parent, that hits me deeply. And I think if you've, there's a movie my wife and I were talking about last night. I think it's called The Impossible, but it's got like Ewan McGregor, and it's about like a tsunami storm and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I love that movie.
And I'm sure if you've survived a big hurricane or something like that, you're going to bring something totally different to the movie. So I think it's both and. I think there's certainly a universal thing in the movie that everyone responds to, but you may have as a parent or as a man or as a woman or as a child or a whatever the different things you have, there may be something in the movie that really unlocks it with you that it's like, I saw myself in the character. Like many of my favorite movies, I'm like, man, that person was imperfect, but I saw myself in their flaws and decisions, and that's why it resonated with me.
Yeah.
I want to circle back. One of the points you were making is that often in a movie, there's one main character maybe that viewers can tend to empathize with. And it kind of sounded like you were saying that is often the key maybe to understanding if there is a sort of intended message that the filmmakers were trying to convey, that which character do you tend to identify with might be, and what's happening in that character's arc might be the way of unlocking what the maybe main intended point is. Does that seem, am I summarizing you right?
Yeah, that's right. And, I want to be clear. A movie is not a lecture.
Yeah.
A movie is not a sermon. It is a story. So it's this like journey that a character is going through, and it has to be surprising. And movies that preach aren't that good. Like they don't do a good job. And even I think some Christian movies are great, and I think some Christian movies have weaknesses. And I think some of the weaknesses is they don't tell a powerful story first. But if you're telling a good story, then that character you are going to empathize with, or at least you're going to ask yourself, like, what would I do in that situation? Like I remember seeing Castaway for the first time, and I'm like, man, what would I do if I actually, that was me, I was stranded there with a volleyball, and I knew how to make nothing. I knew how to, like, how would I survive in that situation? And I think that's how we all see stories. We put ourselves in that character and ask, or at least the good ones, we ask ourselves, what would I do? How would I respond? Is that do you guys think that? Is that true of you?
What would you say, Irene?
I think I kind of like to, I think it was an exercise that I learned in film school, was to rewrite a scene and in which way that you would make the decisions or whatever. So I think that's a fun thing to do. And I think in a zombie apocalypse or a Castaway, it's like, would I survive? What would I do? So I think you always see yourself in the situation. I think that's what makes it fun, and I think that's what brings us to stories and why we need them. Because I feel like it helps us understand our own lives, and how we would think. So I think I process a lot of life through the stories that I watch.
I don't know that I do.
Really? You didn't do that with Backrooms?
No, that's what I was just thinking of. Is I don't know that when I watched Backrooms, I don't know that I was thinking, what would it be like for me to be in the back rooms? I don't. I don't know. I feel like
so what did you take away
from Backrooms?
Yeah, let's go there.
I took away and this will be a section of spoilers. Okay, so if you don't want that, please fast forward 3 minutes. Let's project that. I took away the idea that there is, if we don't really try to reckon with our own story and our sense of how we got to where we are, and if we get to the point where we say, I don't have to change, that becomes a sort of, that can kill us. Maybe literally, maybe not.
Right.
So yeah, like I guess I interpret that through, like I can take elements of that and interpret that for my own life, but I'm not seeing myself in the plot. Like,
yeah.
Oh no, if I was being chased by a giant pirate version of myself, what would I do? You know what I mean? Like it didn't really hit me that way. I don't know, Rob, if you've seen Backrooms.
I haven't seen it yet, but I'm familiar with it all. And I think it's probably the most abstract on the abstract end of discussion of like where all this is. And I think that's what's tricky about talking about movies or stories is like we're talking about a broad swath of stuff.
Yep.
So the way that you'll see, Mission Impossible may be very different than the way that you take in, I'm trying to think, like Schindler's List, like those are very different stories, right?
Right.
So, and they're doing very different things. And so they all have some sort of level of moral or lesson in them, but some are more like mini horror movies or an action adventure movies. They're treated more like a theme park ride, right? Like in Mission Impossible, it's just like, what's the stunt gonna be? What's the, in some horror movies, just like, what's the kill gonna be? What's the thrilling, scary sort of thing gonna be? And so there's probably a scale of from meaning and empathy to just like, hey, this is more of a theme park ride or an experience.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. What do you say to the person who feels like trying to dissect a movie or figure out what it means kills the fun of it, and that it is better suited to be a piece of escapism or just a theme park ride, like you said? How do you respond to that point of view?
Well, I'd say two things. One, you don't have to like overly analyze every single piece of entertainment and everything you're consuming. But two, this stuff shapes us more than we realize. The stories that we consume and the movies we consume, they do shape a culture. And they do shape your own personal life. They're going to shape your views on purpose, on marriage, on pick a topic. And they're going to set on science, on whatever different things. They're going to shape your view. And so I do think, you don't have to like dissect every single movie, but you should think about like, okay, what am I watching? What is it doing to me? And what is it saying to me? And for me, like, I don't do this as like a class, or it's not. I get more out of a movie when I do think about it. And if I, for most part, like if I'm going to see just an action thrill ride, then I'm going to see that. But Disclosure Day is a good kind of middle ground where it's like, okay, this is like a thrilling movie. It's got action set pieces and that sort of stuff, but it definitely has ideas and things that it's wrestling with. And I think regardless of like whether you liked it or not, I think you'll get more out of a movie like Disclosure Day. It's inviting you to think about it. It's inviting you not to just check your brain at the door. It's inviting you into a conversation and some ideas.
Yeah. So Rob, is that a way of being that has always come natural to you, or did you have to kind of at a certain point switch into, no, there are things to process here? Was there maybe a default of passive entertainment, or have you always kind of had that view of let's really dig into what this story is telling us?
I just loved movies. I loved stories. I mean, when I was a kid, Star Wars, He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers, like those were just like, I mean, my dad was a pastor. I went to church, but like I loved those. I love stories. And so then eventually I was just like, okay, what are these things that I love so much? So at first for me, it was just something, it's kind of like, you love playing football, but then eventually you're like, okay, how does a play work? What are the little nuances that gets a wide receiver open and that sort of thing? I think if you love anything enough, you eventually start to break it down and you start to geek out about it and you start to deep dive into it. And that's what it was for me. So I don't think when I was 8 years old, I was like, what is Yoda really saying? And what is he meaning? Like, I was just like, I was like, he's funny and he lifts the ship up and that's cool. But as I got older, I was like, why do I love this stuff so much and what's going on there? And for me, I just found my love for movies and not just movies. I love novels. I love stories. That my love for those things grew more as I learned about them. It did not diminish.
Can I ask a question about parenthood and kind of the media that we let into our kids' lives? You said, movies and shows and stuff can really shape us. What would you say to a parent that is wrestling with their kids wanting to engage with something that they don't necessarily want them to engage with? Yeah. So like, say you have a kid that really loves horror movies and you're not so sure how you feel about it. What's that like? Where can you have that conversation and be open-minded as a parent while also protecting them from something that could shape them in a way that maybe they're not ready for?
There is no easy answer to this, and so I approach it with fear and trembling. And I want to give you my own context, which I hope my mom doesn't listen to this, but maybe she will. But like, I grew up child of the 80s, and so my parents would not let me watch Ghostbusters, would not let me watch Gremlins, would not let me watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And all my friends were at school talking about these movies, and I wasn't allowed to watch them. And so it like whet my appetite even more. And so when I could get old enough, I went buck wild at Blockbuster and just rented everything I possibly could. And so now as a parent, what's funny is like, I'm much more permissive probably than a lot of other Christian parents. But what I try to do is similarly, like I practice what I preach. I try to watch these things with my kids. Now there is some things I'm like, no, we're not watching that. But if they like a horror, then I may be like, okay, let's watch The Sixth Sense and think about it and break that movie down because it's truly scary, but has some ideas and it's really well written and it's well crafted. And so I can kind of help shape their taste some as well. And I can be a participant in it. And if I have to be honest, my biggest fear now isn't my kids watching the wrong thing. My biggest fear is my kids stop watching movies at all. My kids stop consuming stories at all. Because there's so much content of like, just short, YouTube shorts and TikTok and things like that, which I think that content is not like, I would much rather them watch even a scary movie that I'm sitting with them than consume TikTok or YouTube shorts for 4 hours straight, because I think that's, there's so much more to filter out and there's so much more that's coming at them. And I just don't think it's good in a lot of ways. So I do think that colors me as well of like, I want to consume stories with them and teach them how to do this well rather than just kind of mindlessly scroll.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Can you say more about that, Rob? That what can you say more about what it feels like is at stake in that pivot there from maybe watching more movies to watching more 10-second clips of who knows what in rapid succession? Right. What is it about that disturbs you?
Because with a movie or a novel, you're telling a story, you're empathizing with someone, you're having to bring some, even in a movie, you're having to bring, in a movie like Backrooms, which I haven't seen, I know it invites you to bring your own imagination. I know it invites you to read between the lines and look at some things. And so there's something about taking the time to do that, slowly experiencing it, going on a journey and thinking about that. And there's something about watching a full movie that brings empathy, that brings imagination, that brings ideas. I don't think the human mind was designed to do that 15 seconds at a time.
Yeah.
I think all it's designed to do is to laugh or to get excited or to get aroused or to get there. It's just instant emotions is all that's coming at you 15 seconds at a time. And I think that's what aggregators are doing. And so we're just like, it's like drugs. I think we're just giving our kids drugs that are like, okay, these are little hits that they're getting at a time. Now there's exceptions, right? Like I'm nervous to speak too broadly because there are content creators who are doing good and interesting things. But I think on the whole, it's much more harmful. Do you think I'm right, or am I off the reservation on this take?
No, I think that there's something to it. It's an interesting juxtaposition, and I think it's interesting because I think there's a sense that movies can be a mindless form of entertainment. TV shows can be a mindless form of entertainment. But I think you're right to say that if this is actually a thing that is based around a story fundamentally, that's still going to have that effect, and the sort of infinite montage of disconnected clips does not tend to encourage people to think in terms of story. I guess.
I mean, if you think of like how many times have you sat there, and I'm sure we're all guilty of doom scrolling on occasion, and then can you really remember what you watched an hour later?
Right.
Like,
right.
It doesn't stick with you. You're not thinking about it. You're not contemplating it.
Yeah.
It literally is just a hole of time that you've lost.
And maybe your emotions get jacked up or down in one way or another.
Yeah.
But it's,
and
often.
that can't be good for your brain chemicals, you know what I mean? Like, either. So, yeah, I completely agree with you, Rob. And I think that the hard part is, I mean, that it's like a magnet for our kids and even ourselves. Like, it's something that we're constantly having to fight. So I agree with you. I'd rather have my kids watching bad movies or bad shows than being stuck in TikTok endlessly, for sure.
Interesting. One of the things that stands out to me about how Jesus does his ministry is he spends a lot of time telling stories.
Yeah.
I'm curious why you think that is. Is it just because stories are interesting, they compel people's attention, or do you think there's something deeper going on there?
I think there's two primary reasons. One is stories stick, like, for lack of like, I've preached many sermons before, I've spoken many places, and I've shared some of the most amazing biblical wisdom ever, and people sort of remember that. But I have a story about my daughter getting stuck in a water slide that people still remember 10 years later. It's just a story about my daughter, but people remember specifics about that story. And I think there's something in the human mind, and I don't quite understand, and I'm sure another guest may be able to say it better, but the human mind, like, we remember stories from a long time ago, and we remember stories in our own life, and we make sense of the world in stories. Yeah. So I think stories stick. It's easy to remember the details of what happens in the prodigal son than it is to remember the 10 commandments. Like, if I ask most people, hey, tell me the prodigal son off the top of your head. And then if I ask them, hey, tell me the 10 commandments, they may get 4 of the 10, 6, they're not going to get all 10, but they're going to get most of the details, if not all the details, the prodigal son exactly right.
Yeah.
And they've probably heard him the same amount of time. And so I just think there's something sticky about a story. But then also with the prodigal son as an example, stories are emotional. And there's something emotionally that connects about this that makes it, I think God is a God of relationship. God has designed us like this. And there's something about the emotional truth that comes through the story. When I read the story of the prodigal son and the dad standing on the hill and he's looking over and he sees his son walking to him, I think of my own kids and I get teary-eyed and I'm like, that's so powerful. And so I think, Jesus understood that. Many of his stories are about that, of like, I want to change your perspective. And the only way I can truly change your perspective is to start with the humanity that I built in you and appeal to that. And so that's why I believe Jesus used stories so often.
That's so good. I love that.
One of the things we've been talking about this month is the idea that understanding our own life stories and how we got to where we are as individuals and as parents can help us move forward more intentionally. I'm curious, as someone who spends a lot of time kind of analyzing, trying to discern the meaning of movies and other story-based forms of media, do you feel like storytelling in media can inform how we think about our own life stories?
Yeah, for sure. I think, well, one, it's good just to reflect on your own life story and to see how media tells stories, then look at your own life. And really, our own stories are like, okay, what's a real hardship that happened? Like, we want our lives to be happy, right? Like, we want everything to be okay. We want everything to be good. But no movies are about that. No books are. As soon as it gets happy, the story ends.
Right.
And so
That's so
I
real.
think what we can learn is like, hey, from our hardships, I'm actually being formed. I'm being turned into something. And without hardships, there is no life. Without hardships, there is no formation. And so this is just the way God designed it. From the moment that tree came in the middle of the Garden of Eden, it's like, hey, you have a choice, and these choices are going to define you and are going to make you. And so I think we can look at our own stories in that way, and we can say, okay, what are the challenges that I found? And then how do those shape me? And then as we're consuming media, we can learn it as well. And we can say, hey, is there something here that can shape me, inform me, and help me make sense of my own story? And again, not every movie has to do that. Not every book has to do it. But there are movies that have helped me see like, oh, I understand my own fear in a different way. I understand my own, like, there's a movie Weapons that came out last year, which is like a scary movie, but it was really interesting because it was about, I think it's about trauma and how trauma affects the community and how one traumatic act affects different people in different ways.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting way for me to think about when I've been part of a community that's been affected by trauma, how different people get affected. Now I'm bringing a lot into that story that's not all quite there, but it's something I can use that piece of media to understand my own life.
Yeah. Right.
Hey, I'm Bree. I just wanted to pop in and say that today's episode is made possible thanks to The Table. That's our amazing community of monthly givers who make sure that access resources stay free for families everywhere. So if your family's been impacted by what Access does and you want to pass that on to other families, I'd love to invite you to join us at The Table. Head to www.access.org/The Table and join us today.
There was a part that you were talking about how, as soon as the story gets happy, it ends. So do you feel like, and maybe this is a little bit more philosophical than movie, but do you feel like nobody likes to go through hard things, but do you feel like with that mindset, like when we're going through those hardships, can we invite the lessons in more openly if we're thinking about them in that way, rather than just trying to push through, survive it, and get to the happy part? Do you think that our lives could feel more fulfilled if we're like, yeah, I'm in this really rough situation or circumstance, whether it's as a parent or whatever? What do you think it would be easier to go about life, or maybe easier is not the word, but if we're looking at our world in that way of like, I'm inviting this hardship in because I want to understand the why.
I love that question. No, I don't think it would make it easier, but it's not like, okay, I can, but it does provide inspiration, because the hardship is going to come. Like, I don't think we have to invite it in. Like, it's coming. Like, there's going to be a flat tire. There's going to be the loss of a job. There's going to be the market that crashes. There's going to be the friend who gets divorced. There's going to, like, hardships are coming all the time, every single day. And so we don't have to go looking for them. We don't have to seek them out. They're coming, but what we can do is change our perspective on them and say, hey, is this a problem or is this an opportunity? One of my pastor friends told it to me like that. He's like, hey, you may see it like a problem, but this is an opportunity to really show Jesus in a profound way. This is an opportunity to really bring hope in a profound way. This is an opportunity to learn about yourself. And dude, it's so much easier to say on a podcast right now than when you actually like lose your job and you're like,
yeah, right.
This is not an opportunity.
Time to learn about myself. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But when you feel like at your darkest and at your lowest and like, I don't even know if I can get out of bed, I don't even know if I can face this again today, I think that's when we need that level of inspiration.
That's good. Yeah, I love that.
Can I ask a question of you guys?
Sure.
Totally.
Just what I'm curious why this topic appealed to you and why you were interested in stories and storytelling, and why you think like this is something we should explore more. This is something that like would be good to talk about. And I know you weren't prepared for that at all, but I just thought I'd throw it out there and see.
Yeah, it's a great question. You want to go first?
So much of what we do is translating pop culture for parents, right? Like, their kids are listening to Olivia Rodrigo. They're watching, what's that horrible show with the hockey?
Not off campus.
Off campus,
no,
like
the other one.
No, off campus is the one.
That's the one you meant.
Yeah, we were talking about this, and like teens and young people were consuming that with such rapid pace. It was insane, and we're just kind of like, we want to. Our kids are going through so much media, and they're being informed by this, and like you said, shaping it. I think it's such an important part for us to understand and not avoid, especially as parents. Like we can't avoid culture, right? It's happening all the time, and our kids are engaging with it all the time. So rather than to, like your parents and mine as well, I wasn't allowed to watch what was it, Princess Aurora, Sleeping Beauty, like it was evil, So rather than avoiding everything, can we engage in this with our teens and with our kids and understand, why does off-campus appeal to you? What is interesting about the story that all your generation is so interested in? And I think that part of understanding storytelling is understanding why our kids love these things and how we can connect with them through the things that they love, and not just the things that we bring them, that we want them to love,
Yeah. I would add to that, part of our goal at Access and on this podcast is to translate pop culture to help start conversations between the generations. And
love it.
Movies, TV shows, these are some of the most important parts of pop culture. I also, on a personal level, am just really intrigued by the mystery of why stories work and why they are compelling. You can be in a presentation that someone else is giving, and they're citing, percentages and data points, but then all of a sudden, if they're like, the other day I was at the store, then there's just something about my brain that just locks onto that and just all of a sudden is in. And the fact that Jesus told so many stories is just so, it's so interesting to me and so mysterious. And there's Dan Allender has this idea that we don't have life stories, we are stories, right? And that there's something about this that is really core to the human experience. So that's why I wanted to talk to you.
I think we've been dabbling in trying to tell some of our stories, not in like a sermon way, but like we've been playing a little bit with narrative stuff and finding that really connects with people. We did a short film a couple of years ago called The Drive, and people were like, that's my favorite time with my kid is in the car, and when we're learning how to drive, like that's when I get to connect with them the most. And so I think like you're saying, people will remember the details and the moments from stories in a different way than maybe only a talking head can do in some of our material.
Yeah, I just want to say I love your mission. I think what you're doing is so critical. The bottom line as a parent, and I have 4 daughters, and I have elementary school, middle school, high school, college. So I have kind of the whole swath that I'm going through it with 4 daughters. And as a parent, I think there are 3 approaches you can take to this. One is fear, which is like, okay, I'm gonna be afraid of all these things are bad, and so I'm gonna shut them off completely. The other is just overly permissive, like, it's just a story, whatever. Just watch that stuff, it's fine. I watched it when I was a kid, I turned out fine. And then the third one is to actually do what you guys are doing and engage with it and think about it. And not just think, every story is there because it's horrible and they're wanting to put horrible stuff in there. But no, there's something that's resonating with audiences. Audiences are always smart, I think. And so there's something about a real thing that pops that resonates with them. And so it really is, as a parent, of like, okay, how do I understand what's resonating? Why is this resonating? And you have to be wise of like what you do and don't show them. But I do think it's better to like, one, with your own media, think about how does it affect me and what does it make me think about my own story? And then 2, take that to your kids and think about that as well. And I think the third way that you guys are providing is the way, that's why I'm here. That's the way that I'm championing. And I think it's really cool what you're doing. And it's difficult. It's so much easier to do fearful, shutting everything off, or permissive, I'm going to give everything. And it takes more work to do the third way, but there's no better work. There's no better way to spend your time, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Rob Stennett, thank you so much for joining and being a part of this conversation. Listeners, next week we will be doing another episode with Rob Stennett where he'll help us answer a listener question about discerning what media as parents it is truly appropriate to let our kids engage with. So we'll be digging into a very specific situation next week. Hope you'll check that out. But Rob, for now, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for watching. This podcast is made possible because of our generous donor community, The Table. To help us support more parents and other caring adults through culture translation, we'd love to invite you to check out The Table by clicking right here. Also, if you've been impacted by what we do, would you consider letting us know with a like, comment, and/or subscription, as well as sharing this episode with someone you think could benefit? Thanks for caring about having intentional conversations with the next generation.